Rainier Singing Seer here. I had a request for resentment, anger, and letting your past go. That's a good one for me. Are you happy? Are you a happy person most of the time? Are you content? Are you at peace with who you are? Are you at peace with everyone around you? Are you at peace with everything that you've chosen to do and how you've chosen to do it? Or do you have fleeting moments of happiness followed by constant mental dialogue of negative thoughts and the things that might go wrong or will go wrong? Or do you obsess on your childhood and why it was the way it was, and just living in that past? I was a very, very, very angry young woman. I was so angry, I guess I was almost borderline mentally ill, I suppose. I don't know. In the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, they talk about having those grave mental and emotional disorders. But, you know, having that kind of anger that I did, and I'm not saying that there isn't justified anger, that justified anger doesn't exist. If something has been done to you against your will as a child, of course your anger is justified. I understand that. But what happened is I carried it into my adulthood, and it started to affect everything around me. I could not take responsibility for my life because I was constantly blaming my parents and the situation and the things that I had to go through. So much so that the anger, or I should say the rage that I had as a young adult created a lot of wreckage. And behind anger, if a person gets angry, it's fear. Because, you know, anger is a secondary emotion of fear. If a person is angry, then they have unresolved issues that are not just going to go away by themselves. Now, I share this all the time, that I went to therapy for many years, and I'm not saying that therapy doesn't work. It does work. But after a while, you can only be so aware and talk about what happened and what was wrong so many times. But then what do you do with all that anger? There's a lot of shame and guilt behind anger, believe it or not. So what happens is you're angry, and then you have this shame and guilt that's just so, you know, deep into your subconscious. So you end up doing this, I'll show you, I'll hurt myself. And so what happens is you don't really hurt other people. You end up hurting yourself because a very angry person might sabotage their dreams and goals. They might procrastinate. They might get to a certain point in their life, and for some reason they can't move past it. The reason you can't move past where you are, if you're stuck and things just seem to keep going wrong all the time, it's not a coincidence. Those are the direct result of choices that you make at one point or another. And that is also a result and stems from being angry. Because when a person is angry, they're not really willing to listen or, you know, take, you know, healthy or good suggestions. They just are like self-will run riot. That's how I was. I'm just going to do what I want and suffer the consequences. And most of the time, there were a lot of major consequences that were very negative consequences. And it was, you know, as they say, I was the one who set the ball in motion. So once I took responsibility, once I understood that my life was a gift and that what I did with that is my responsibility, I was in a better place to maybe stop blaming my childhood. The only problem with anger and unresolved emotions and abusive situations that were tragic or created PTSD is that they get stuck in the cells of your body. So while I had all these years of therapy and 13 years of sobriety, I was still so very angry, and I didn't know what to do about it. And it started to manifest in my body, and it will manifest in your body as illnesses. And it's a direct result of how we feel. Our body creates cortisol. Cortisol is a fight or flight hormone. And if the body creates too much cortisol due to stress and depression and worrying, then eventually the immune system breaks down, and a person can get very, very sick just from harboring anger and resentment and sadness alone. So if you want to be free and you want to move forward in your life, you've got to let the anger go. Granted, I'm never going to be able to go back and change the things that my parents did wrong, and what happened, and the way my childhood was, and then the wreckage that I created as a young adult. But I can do something now, and EFT has been the most amazing tool and modem for releasing the painful, negative past, and it's a permanent effect. That's what's so amazing. I've been tapping for 8 years, and 3 of those years I tapped solely on my parents and my childhood alone. So that might give you a little indication of just how powerful and how angry I really was. Anyway, so if your anger is extreme and it manifests in very negative ways in your life, like just being hard-headed and self-willed and making decisions and doing things anyway, even though you know they're not good for you, then you have no one to blame but yourself. But if you want to let that anger go, because anger just shuts you off from the sunlight of the Spirit, it shuts you off from being consciously aware of the good messages and the good things that are trying to come into your life. It shuts you off from receiving and allowing love. It just, it's not your friend. It's no good. So anyway, tapping on anger and resentment. Here we go, starting with the karate chop point. Now you're probably and hopefully familiar with the karate chop points by now. Even though I have this anger, this very, very deep anger. I'll just use an example, just one that I made up. It's very upsetting to see other people with really great parents who take care of them so well, who help them out, who support them and love them. And I had zero. I had none of that. But I love and accept and forgive myself completely. It's really hard to have all this anger in me. Anger that I am holding on to because of things that happened when I was a child. I'm so angry over this. But I love and accept and forgive myself completely. Even though I have this anger and rage, I just want them to understand. I want them to know. I just want them to really understand and feel how angry I am. If I was just understood by them, because that's what I thought. If I was just understood by them, then I could heal. I could be better. The problem with that is that, for me anyway, I was never understood. I did not receive an apology, and they are just who they are. And I had to eventually let go of that. But I love and accept and forgive myself completely. All this anger, what happened was not fair. What happened was not fair. It just seems like life is so unfair. How could it be so unfair? How could some people be loved and adored and have wonderful parents and some people not? How come some people get things so easily and some people just work really, really hard? Now this is victim mentality and never seem to get ahead. Okay, that's victim mentality, and it's also poor programming. It's not true. It's a lie. All this anger Because the truth is that it's out there for you, for me, for everyone. And it's your natural right to be happy, joyous, and free. I don't know what to do with all this anger, but I am willing to release it in mind, body, and spirit. Okay, so we're going to do the Gamut Point, because the Gamut Points are very, very powerful. So we'll start with the thumb. This is part of the cognitive behavioral therapy that I teach. Oh, this anger, this anger, this anger, this anger. Now, when I was tapping, out over my parents, I used a lot of profanity. There was a lot of pain and anger and a lot of crying. That's okay. It's okay to be angry. Maybe you need to be angry in a productive, healthy way, like when you're trying to let this go. The Gamut Point, which is right between the ring finger and the pinky. This pain, this anger, this anger, this anger, this anger. Okay, now remember, this is cognitive behavioral therapy, so it rewires the brain. You shut your eyes, and then you open them and you look to the right, sharp right, you look sharp left, you roll your eyes counterclockwise, you roll your eyes clockwise, you hum happy birthday, and then you count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you hum again, You can do this crossing your legs, crossing your feet, but the whole eye movement and the tapping and the humming and the singing while thinking about that which makes you angry is part of what they call cognitive behavioral therapy. So it literally rewires the brain. And, I would highly suggest going to an EFT practitioner like myself, someone who can sit down and maybe go back into the more tender, delicate parts of your childhood to find out why maybe you are passive-aggressive today, why you're still angry, because I guarantee you, if you don't let that anger go, you will carry it into the next relationship, the next relationship, the next relationship. It will be in this relationship. It will be with you, because wherever you go, there you are. And happiness is an inside job. So loving yourself, truly loving yourself, means to make one good, healthy decision after the next. There is a lot of videos on the YouTube for EFT. I suggest that you utilize this. It's a very powerful tool to alleviate the pain that long-term anger and frustration can create, in your mind, body, and spirit. You deserve that. It is part of loving yourself. Letting that past go and letting that anger go and letting the pain associated with it go is loving yourself. With EFT, it's a permanent effect, and it's just very rare that I get angry anymore. I don't think I could get angry if I tried really hard to drum it up, and that's pretty amazing. I no longer react to situations. I no longer think that everything is an insult or an attack on me. I can observe from afar. I can respond with love. Sometimes I don't respond at all. It's part of taking care of myself. So take care of yourself. Utilize EFT. It's a wonderful tool. I hope this was helpful in some way to you in educating you about how to let go of anger and resentment.